with another hung parliament, more delays, more dither, more infighting, more arguing, more indecision, with him propped up by and in hock to Nicola Sturgeon. Meaning 2 more unnecessary referendums in 2020. But to get the majority that we need, we will have to work for every single vote. And I know how hard you have all been working on cold, wet days and nights on the doorsteps. It's not glamorous, but it is absolutely vital. And as party chairman, it has been a privilege to travel up and down the UK, seeing the dedication and the commitment of our members, our volunteers, and our supporters. From Bishop Auckland to Cheltenham, from the Vale of Clwyd to Ipswich, North Down to Stirling, from Workington to Wimbledon. And on the doorsteps, I hear one thing more than anything else. Voters want to get Brexit done. But more than that, they also want us to get working on their priorities: the NHS, police, schools. And with a stable majority, Boris Johnson will clear the logjam that has paralysed our politics, and he will get stuff done. And I know, and I know he will. I know he will because I've worked with him and I have seen him deliver. As Mayor of London, he promised to reduce crime, and he did. He promised to get funding for Crossrail, and he did. He promised a cycling revolution, and he did. As Foreign Secretary, he promised to hold those responsible for the horrifying poisoning in Salisbury to account, and he did, expelling 23 Russian diplomats. And he promised to renegotiate the withdrawal agreement, remove the undemocratic backstop, and he did. And now he has promised to get Brexit done. And because every single Conservative candidate at this election has pledged to back this deal, if we can get a majority in tomorrow's general election, he will deliver that too. He will deliver that too. But we also know Boris won't stop there. An extra £34 billion for our NHS, an extra 20,000 police officers on our streets, extra funding for every primary and secondary school student in England. But he can only do this if we win those few extra seats that we need to secure a majority. Only if we knock on those extra doors. Only if we get out those extra votes. So as hard as you have been working, I have one final ask of you. This election is going to be close, so please, don't stop working until 10 o'clock tomorrow night. Let's defeat Corbyn. Let's win those seats. And let's give Boris the majority that he needs to get Brexit done. And now, ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to do is give a fantastic welcome to my friend and colleague, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Mr. Michael Gove.
Ooh. Thank you, everyone, and thank you in particular, thank you, James. James, you have run an incredible election campaign. Can we all give James one huge cheer? For the inspirational leadership that he has shown. Well, friends, This is it, the moment of truth. Will we get Brexit done, move on as a country, and unleash Britain's potential? Or will we remain stuck in the grotesque chaos of another hung parliament with Jeremy Corbyn and Nicola Sturgeon calling the shots? I just want you to all think about that prospect for a second. Imagine Jeremy Corbyn as our Prime Minister in charge of our national security. Jeremy Corbyn wants to leave NATO. He wants to abolish our nuclear deterrent. He says it's wrong to take pride in the strength of our armed forces, and instead we should emulate countries like Costa Rica, which have no army at all. No allies, no deterrent, no army. No way can we let that man be our Prime Minister. And you know, the most shameful thing of all, Jeremy Corbyn has tolerated anti-Semitism, racism, on a massive scale in his own party. Absolutely. Can we, friends, can we all make sure that we send a single message out from this hall to our Jewish friends and neighbours? We stand with you in solidarity against prejudice, now and always. On anti-Semitism, on national security, on the economy, on Brexit, on every issue of importance to this country, Jeremy Corbyn gets it wrong. Put simply, we cannot let this democracy-denying, terrorist-supporting, Hamas-hugging, IRA-sympathising, Putin-excusing, utility-nationalising, property-confiscating, high-taxing, job-destroying apology for a leader anywhere near Downing Street. And what about his prospective coalition partner, Nicola Sturgeon? She doesn't love this country. She wants to tear it in two. So again, let the message go out from this hall. We say, Nicola, hands off our precious United Kingdom. And as for Jo Swinson, the leader of the party that calls itself the Liberal Democrats, she wants to take the biggest democratic vote in this country, the proposition that we should leave the European Union, and cancel it outright. She's neither liberal nor democratic, and we should send a message from this hall, Jo, please remember, the people of this country voted to leave. We need to get Brexit done. Thank you. That is the message. Now, we are fortunate in our Prime Minister. Boris has been in Downing Street for just 140 days now. And in that time, he's negotiated a fantastic new deal with the European Union. He's been recruiting more police officers. He's awarded the NHS the biggest cash boost in its history. And he's announced more school funding to give every child the best start in life. He hosted our NATO allies in London. He's introduced a world-leading environment bill, and he's secured the backing of every single Conservative candidate at this election for his Brexit policy. He's achieved all that in just 140 days. Imagine what he can achieve in 5 years, armed with a Conservative majority in Parliament. Well, let me give you a little taster. Boris will be introducing an Australian-style points-based immigration system. He will deliver 50,000 extra nurses and 50 million more GP surgery appointments. He will get projects to build 40 new hospitals underway. He'll put 20,000 more police officers on our streets. He will toughen sentences for terrorists and serious criminals, and he will also expand investment in science, transport and infrastructure to set us on the road to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And all while freezing rates of income tax, VAT and national security. Boosting our economy, improving public services, protecting our environment and keeping taxes low, the Conservatives are delivering for Britain again. But if we are to deliver that brighter future, we need a working majority to get Parliament working again. And friends, we know this election is so close. We need just 9 more seats to win that crucial majority. So every single vote will count. And I know how tired many of you will be, having worked so hard for our party and for our country over the last 6 weeks. And I deeply appreciate everything that you have done. But please give it one last push for this critical final 24 hours. Knock on every door you can. Talk to every voter you can to make sure Boris is back in Downing Street on Friday. Then we can get Brexit done and deliver prosperity, security, and certainty for our great country. With your help, I know that we can do it. And now it's time for me to hand over to someone who's an inspiration to us all. Someone who was there with us on the Vote Leave campaign right from the very start. Someone who has campaigned passionately for democracy and freedom her whole life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend and our Home Secretary, Priti Patel.
Michael, thank you so much for your warm welcome. And look, it's fantastic to see so many of you here. Our fantastic, energetic, enthusiastic supporters and campaigners all here tonight. And you know what? Each and every one of you continue to make our fantastic party, the Conservative and the Unionist Party, one of the greatest political parties in the world. And I've seen many of you, you've seen many of me as well, and others, campaigning across the country over recent weeks, from Dudley to Doncaster, Southampton to Stoke, across Yorkshire, the West Midlands, London, so many parts of the country. I've seen you all out there, and I've seen firsthand the incredible work that you've all been doing to help us to get Brexit done, so we can move our country forward. And as we reach the end of this election campaign, I say to all of you, our magnificent members, our fantastic activists, all of you in this hall today, thank you to each and every one of you for everything that you've been doing, for the doors you've been knocking, for the leaflets you've been putting through people's letterboxes, for the way in which you've been campaigning, with conviction and determination. And you've all campaigned for the same values shared by the majority of people across our great United Kingdom. The hard-working, the honest, the law-abiding majority who share our vision for the future, our optimism for this great country. And of course, since July this year, we, led by our great Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, have been getting on and delivering on the people's priorities, delivering on that optimism for the future. Because yet again, it's fallen to us, our great party, the Conservative Party, to lead our nation through testing times. And we have done exactly that. Our Prime Minister promised that he would get a new Brexit deal, a better deal, and he has delivered on a deal that will maximise the opportunities of Brexit while allowing us to have the freedoms and exciting partnerships with the rest of the world. Promise delivered. Our Prime Minister promised that hospitals would finally get the investment they need to match that devotion and dedication of our staff in the NHS. And we're delivering on the biggest investment in hospital infrastructure in a generation. That's a promise delivered. And he and I promised without apology that our party would take its rightful place as the party of law and order in Britain once again. And that we would stand with the brave men and women of our police and security services, and that we would stand against the criminals who seek to do us harm, that we would recruit 20,000 more police officers, and that every single one of those new officers will have increased powers to keep our families, our communities, and our country safe. And that every single one of those officers can rest assured that this Prime Minister and this Home Secretary and our party will always have their backs. Now, that's what I mean when I say that we have a Prime Minister who is delivering on the people's priorities. So that's why, at this general election, there's a choice between real change or simply more uncertainty and more dither and delay. But this election is also a choice between two people for the top job, the biggest job, the most important job. So what can we say about Jeremy Corbyn? A democracy-denying Brexit blocker who would inflict an unwanted and divisive second referendum on our country, leading to more delay and division and uncertainty for businesses and families. A man whose extreme economic policies would spell disaster for Britain, for the hard-working majority, once again being left footing the bill for Labour's financial ruin. And a man whose own shadow health secretary thinks that he is a threat to our national security. We're not going to let that happen now, are we? And we know there's a better option, a more positive option for that brighter future, with the hope and certainty that a functioning Conservative majority can bring to our country, led by Boris Johnson. Now, I've had the privilege of working with Boris on 4 election campaigns, twice for his mayoral campaign, that EU referendum campaign, that vote to leave, and now this once-in-a-lifetime general election. And it's fair to say that in every election, he has been determined to deliver for the people. And I think, in fact, I know many of you here will agree that his energy and his optimism in every campaign is pretty infectious, isn't it? And in case you hadn't noticed, he actually has a cheeky sense of humour too. But also, his sense of duty and responsibility is exactly why I'm not only proud to call Boris my colleague, but also one of my closest friends in politics. I've known Boris for over a decade, and I've worked with him both at home and abroad. At home, I've seen his determination to give those who feel ignored a voice, from being one of the first politicians to campaign against Section 28 and promote gay marriage, so everyone can freely love who they choose, to his commitment to diversifying the workforce of the Metropolitan Police while he was London Mayor, so that our police service truly reflects the communities that it serves, to his work now to deliver on the democratic mandate of the British people. And abroad, I've seen him lead the world on the most important issues of our time, such as climate change and the right of every girl to have 12 years of good quality education. And let me tell you this, nobody else will advocate for the people of our great country in the way in which he has done, and will continue to do so if a Conservative majority government is elected tomorrow. So friends, our country is at a crossroads, but Boris is the man to unleash its potential. And with a Conservative majority government, we can get Brexit done in just a month's time, finally giving businesses and families the economic certainty they need to live their lives and plan for the future. And when we get Brexit done, we will get Parliament working for you again, the British people, to ensure that 2020 is about people and not politicians. Investing record sums in our NHS with 50,000 more nurses and 40 new hospitals, recruiting 20,000 more police officers and introducing tougher sentences for the most violent and serious criminals, and introducing an Australian-style points-based immigration system that attracts the brightest and the best while getting overall levels of immigration down, one that works in the best interests of our country and one that is under the control of the British government. So to all of you in the hall today, you know what I'm going to say. Let's get out there together and deliver our message with 24 hours to go. We are the only party for the future of our country. We're the only party that cares about the future of our country. We're the only party with a plan you can trust. Only the Conservatives will get Brexit done by the 31st of January. We will deliver on the people's priorities, and only the Conservatives will unleash our country's potential. Now, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce, before we welcome the Prime Minister, a short video that's full of that infectious energy that we've all seen day in, day out, winning over the trust of the British people so that we can secure a Conservative majority and get Brexit done.
We've had 3 years of a parliament that does nothing except argue, going round in circles like a washing machine stuck on the spin cycle. That's why the general election on the 12th of December is so important. The Conservatives need 9 more seats to end this gridlock. And voters, like you, will decide the kind of future that Britain has. You can break the deadlock and get Parliament working again.
It is this One Nation Tory party that is already embarked on the biggest cash boost for the NHS for a generation. And we pledge 50,000 more nurses and their bursaries and 50 million more GP surgery appointments. We will tackle crime with 20,000 more police officers and tougher sentencing, and that we will sort out our immigration system with a points-based Australian-style system.
But it's taken 3.5 years to change this paralysed parliament.
Boris, let's get Brexit done. Let's do it. Thank you.
There you go. I say, let's go carbon neutral by 2050 and Corbyn neutral by Christmas. Let's go. We will invest millions more every week in science, in schools, in apprenticeships, and in infrastructure. We can reach, and we will reach, net zero by 2050 with clean energy solutions. We can do all these things without raising our income tax, VAT, or national insurance contributions. That's our guarantee. Get Brexit done, and we'll see a pent-up tidal wave of investment into this country. Get Brexit done, and we can focus our hearts and our minds on the priorities of the British people.
There are 2 very different futures in front of us. We can vote for Jeremy Corbyn or the Lib Dems and get another hung parliament that agrees on nothing except more arguments, the same as the last 3 years, or we can elect a parliament that works for you. A parliament that gets stuff done. That's the kind of future I want for Britain.
Let's finally believe in ourselves and what we can do. This country has long been a pioneer. We inaugurated the steam age, we inaugurated the atomic age, the age of the genome. We led the way in parliamentary democracy, in female emancipation. And when the whole world had succumbed to a different economic fashion. This country and this party, under a female prime minister, pioneered ideas of free markets that spread across the planet. And now we are about to take another giant step, to do something no one thought we could do, to reboot our politics, to relaunch ourselves into the world, and to dedicate ourselves again to the simple proposition that we are here to serve the democratic will of the British people. Let's get Brexit done and unleash the potential of this whole country. Good evening, Copper Box. Good evening, everyone. Are you, thank you all very much. Wow, what an enormous crowd. Are you ready for the contest ahead? Are you pumped up? Are you energized and motivated? Well, I sincerely hope so. I sincerely hope so, everybody. I sincerely hope so, because we have a national duty between now and 10 o'clock tomorrow night to find every vote we can to save our country from disaster. Because we all know what happened 2 years ago. We know that we cannot trust the opinion polls, and we know that this contest is tight and getting tighter. And tomorrow, the choice for our amazing country could not be starker. Indeed, I can't remember an election in my political lifetime when there has been such a yawning chasm between the two possible futures for this country. We can choose to go forward with a one-nation Conservative government, end the deadlock, lift the clouds, launch ourselves towards a brighter future for the whole country, or else we can remain stuck in neutral, paralyzed, lost in years more of deadlock, defeatism, division, and despair caused by well, there's only one mathematical alternative, isn't there, to a working majority Conservative government? You know what it is? You know what it is? It's a hung parliament, another hung parliament. That's what we could face on Friday. That's the reality. Look at it. The pollsters are saying it. A hung parliament, a Corbyn-Sturgeon coalition. And a vote for any other party but the Conservative Party would produce that result, or would encourage that result. That's the iron logic of the situation. And that would be an economic disaster for this country, an economic disaster. Look at the irresponsibility of the pledges of Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. John McDonnell, don't forget, is a guy who's so left-wing, so far out there. You know, he was sacked by Ken Livingstone for forging a budget in the GLC. They would raise spending to such extraordinary levels. They put up taxes for ordinary people. Average taxpayer would pay £2,400 more in tax. People on only £20,000 a year could expect to pay £1,000 more in tax. Interest rates would go up as the markets mark down our ability to repay our debts. People's mortgages would suffer. That is the reality of what Corbyn and McDonnell would offer. And they want to bring back exchange controls to try and limit the damage. I mean, can you imagine exchange controls? They got rid of exchange controls in Angola. I mean, they still have them in Venezuela, of course, but that is the kind of economics we could expect, and it would be an economic disaster. It would be a political disaster, my friends, because this is an incredible country, our amazing country, second biggest contributor to NATO, a country that is admired, that is loved around the world, a country that guarantees the security not just of the people in this country, but helps through our alliances to guarantee the security of people across the world. Across the world, that's what the UK does. And imagine the reaction. I can tell you the reaction. If our incredible country, fifth biggest economy in the world, was led by a Hamas-backing, IRA-supporting, anti-Semitism condoning appeaser of the Kremlin. Because that's what he is. That's what he is. And don't you just have to listen to me? Listen to what John Ashworth, his shadow health spokesman, said himself. He said that he would be a risk to national security. And I'm afraid I cannot dissent from that view. And it would be a political disaster, of course, because he would be in coalition, Corbyn would be in coalition with Nicola Sturgeon. And what would the price, what price would she demand for her support? We know what it would be. It would be another referendum on Scotland, when the people of Scotland were promised in 2014 that this was a once-in-a-generation event. And can you imagine anything like it? Can you imagine? But we know she'd get her way, wouldn't we? Know who wears the trousers, or who would wear the trousers in that relationship. But there's one thing worse than another referendum on Scotland. We know what it is. He would refuse to do something that this country has yearned for us to get on and do for the last 3.5 years. He would refuse to do something that we can do. What is it that we're going to do? We're going to get Brexit done. We're going to get Brexit done. He'd have another referendum on the EU. That's what he would do. And I don't know what you feel, but I think whether you voted Leave or Remain, I think it's time for this country to come together and move on and honour the will of the people of this country. And we can. We can do it, can't we? We've got a deal. As I never tire of telling you, it is oven ready or microwave ready. Pick your cooking style. Just add hot water. It's there. It's ready to go. Every single one, it's extraordinary fact, every single one of the 630 plus Conservative candidates at this election support this deal. We have come together. And I want to assure the members of the media there has been no sort of North Korean bullying here. Everybody has done it. They haven't been lobotomized. They do it because they can see it's a great deal for our country. Now let me ask you, how many members of Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet support the deal that he is proposing to do? None of them. Not a single one. Can't imagine Act 1, Scene 1 of the Corbyn Premiership when he goes into Brussels and he meets Michel Barnier. And Michel Barnier says, bonjour, Monsieur Corbyn, comment allez-vous? Tell us about the deal you want to do, and who supports your deal? Who supports your plan? Monsieur Starmer, Monsieur MacDonald, Madame Abbott? No? Quoi? It would be farcical. It would be farcical if it were not so catastrophic for this country, and if it didn't mean that the delay and the deadlock continued to be an economic drag anchor on this country. And we can take this country forward. We can get a deal done. We can come out by January the 31st and move on. And then of course, we can take it not only take advantage of all the freedoms that Brexit brings, cutting VAT on sanitary products, on tampons, improving our law on animal welfare to give greater protections, which is something the British people have wanted for decades, free ports, free trade deals, having our own, as Pretty rightly says just now, having our own immigration policy that we democratically control. But even more important than that, for our immediate purposes, after 3.5 years, we can give certainty to the UK economy. And there is £150 billion worth of investment waiting to come in to this country just when we get Brexit done on January the 31st and move on. And above all, we can move on. We can move on with the incredible progress that we've made just in the last 130 days, the biggest ever cash boost to the NHS. How many new hospitals are we going to build? 4, correct. 50,000 new nurses, 50,000 more nurses, I should say, while the BBC are checking. 50,000 more nurses we're going to deliver as a result of the plans that we've put in place now. How many more police officers are we recruiting? 20,000 more police. What are we doing with every school, every primary, every secondary school in the country? We're investing, we're lifting up the funding for every primary school, every secondary school in the country, and we're going to get on with our One Nation programme, aren't we? That's what we can do. That's what we can do if we get Brexit done. But we can only do it if we get Brexit done. We've got to get Brexit done if we want to unite and level up our country with fantastic investments in infrastructure, in education and technology, in gigabit broadband, in 5G telephony, spreading hope and opportunity around the whole country. That is what One Nation Conservatives do. That is our vision for the country, to unite it and bring it together. Because I believe, as a Conservative, that talent and genius and flair, intelligence is evenly distributed throughout the whole country. Isn't it? Of course it is. Everywhere. But opportunity is unfairly distributed. And our job as Conservatives is to unleash the potential of the whole country and spread that opportunity around. And we can do all that. And, by the way, have the cleanest, greenest government ever, using our fantastic technology to cut CO2 and cut pollutions. But we can do all these things. We can do all these things with sensible, moderate policies that allow us to give the British people not just cuts in national insurance, but a tax lock on any increases in VAT or income tax. We will not increase those three taxes. And that is the choice. That is the choice. That is the choice that this country faces. And it's very, very clear and it's very, very stark. We are a party, we are a government, a one-nation government that backs our police, that thinks that people who commit serious sexual violence offences or are guilty of terrorism should face tough sentences. We support our armed services. We believe they're a force for good around the world, as I say. We want to strengthen our MI5 and our security services that keep us safe. We believe in NATO, that keeps 29 countries, 1 billion people safe around the world. We support business and enterprise. We want to cut taxes on small businesses. We want to cut business rates because we think that's the way to drive a strong economy. And we understand that it's only by having a strong economy, it's only by having a dynamic business culture that you're able to pay for fantastic public services and you're able to make investments in the NHS. That is the heart of our one nation philosophy, isn't it? It's very, very simple. But they don't seem to understand it. This Labour Party, this Corbyn and McDonnell, I should say, they don't understand it. They don't get it. Look, whether it's Corbyn, McDonnell, or Abbott at one time or another, they have said that they are against stop and search by the police, that they would let prisoners out early, they'd scrap our armed forces. That was Corbyn's contribution. They would ban MI5, I think that was Diane Abbott, and they would abandon NATO. That's Corbyn again. And as for John McDonnell, he said that his ambition as Chancellor of the Exchequer of this country is to foment the destruction of capitalism, my friends. And I cannot think that that is the right way forward for this country. All Labour governments end in economic disaster. These guys, if they were to get in, would start with an economic disaster. So now is the time. Now is the time to give that madness a miss. Now is the time for this amazing country to come together and to remember, by the way, here in this Olympic Park, to remember what it is capable of achieving. And I urge you all to fan out from this great athletic venue at a lick, top speed. And by the way, I won't hesitate to remind you, since people sometimes ask, about my record of delivery. This is one of the many hundreds of pieces of colossal infrastructure that you're standing in that I helped to deliver on time, on budget, in what I think was the most successful Olympic Games ever. Let's get out from this place. Let's get out. Let's go forward from this place. Let's go forward from this place. Let's fan out and make that final sprint towards a golden future for the United Kingdom. Because we have 24 hours to end the deadlock, 24 hours to break the gridlock, 24 hours in which we can remove the parliamentary roadblock and get a working majority for a sensible, moderate, dynamic, one-nation Conservative government, investing massively in the NHS, cutting the cost of living and getting a parliament that works for you. That is the opportunity, my friends, that is before us tomorrow. That's what we can do. Let's make sure we don't waste a minute between now and 10 o'clock tomorrow. Let's talk to every one of our friends. Let's make sure we reach out to every one of our neighbours and encourage them to do the right thing tomorrow. And let's make sure that we give our children and our grandchildren the future they deserve in this country. Let's be carbon neutral, as I say, by 2050. Let's be carbon neutral by 2050 and Corbyn neutral by Christmas. And we can do it. We can do it. Let's get Brexit done and take this. Let's get Brexit done and take this incredible country forwards together. Thank you all very much for coming along tonight. Thank you.